Thank you, President Carl and fellow members of Rotary. It is my pleasure today to present Erin Maile O'Keefe. Erin is an educator, trainer, and community artist activator who has developed kinesthetic, multi-generational curriculums that facilitate group inclusion, connection, co-authorship, and empathy for over 25 years. Her fascination with space all started with the study of dance and architecture, how humans experience and move in spaces, both built and temporal. After initially attending architecture school, her work turned toward movement arts and the relational spaces between people and groups. In 2015, after completing a master's certificate in creative placemaking at Ohio State University, Erin founded the Human Connection Project that focuses on activating communities through municipal-wide arts projects, creative placemaking, and experiential engagement. In 2016, she co-founded Tiny House Fest Vermont. The fest focuses on regional housing solutions, innovations, and resources. In that same year, Erin designed and began building a tiny house called the Paper Boat. She and her husband, Kevin, have been living there since April 2018 and loving it. I had the pleasure of meeting Erin. Erin is a Sunrise Rotarian when we had our meetings to discuss what to do about COVID-19. And we generated a lot of ideas. And Erin came up with a fantastic idea that she not only conceived, but she actually brought to fruition. It's been written about in the Brattleboro Reformer, and I just thought that this would be a wonderful opportunity for us to hear about another example of Rotary in action. It is my pleasure to introduce fellow Rotarian Erin Maile O'Keefe.
Thank you, Marty. What a nice introduction. I appreciate that. Hello, everyone. I recognize a lot of faces here, and Tom, who recently moved from the morning to midday. All right, thanks again, Marty. This is a project that emerged out of the fact that a lot of my work, like Marty described, involved a lot of groups of people, festivals and teaching large groups in communities and families and lots of close contact. So as you can imagine, a lot of my work kind of evaporated in March. So being an artist, I feel like we kind of thrive in these conditions where everything's tossed up in the air and you're like, okay, well, how do these pieces fit together now? So this project came out of my thinking of how I could be useful at this time as our society is experiencing some severe changes. I also had an incredible partnership on a project called Waterways, and that was with myself, Felicity Rattay, and your noon Rotarian, Chris Hart. So the project we were working on at Melrose Terrace couldn't be done. So I basically posed some questions to our group, and I'm going to screen share now, if that's possible. Almost. Who has the power? Marty does. Aha, there it is. Thank you. Okay. So these are some of the conditions and inspiration for the project called Handy Station. So we focused on these two questions. How are we going to safely and creatively come back together in our public spaces? And since my work centers artists, how are we going to employ artists to facilitate this invitation to come back together? So we focused on hand sanitizing. That seemed to be something that needed to happen and could easily be something that got very dull or maybe overlooked. So in the way that I think, I thought, how do we make this novel and fun? So not just something that we have to do. So that became an opportunity. And I also recognize that a lot of our musicians are venue artists that relied, similar to myself, relied on large groups of people in venues, that they were out of work, along with a lot of visual artists. So how do we put them to work? How do we also offer them compensation for their work and center their work, and not that the one commission to do a project would make a huge significant difference in their earnings, but to really feature them, and so that their work and their importance in our community was highly visual and visible for others. So that's where this Handy Station project was born. And there we go. So we embarked on a prototype process in May, and began with this team of myself, Felicity, Chris Hart, and then we also worked with Stephanie Bonin, who we continue to work with, of Downtown Brattleboro Alliance, I'm sure you're all aware of. Peter Siegel, who is a musician, local musician and educator of music. Neil Patel, who is a tech person and worked on the sound system. I went to Keene State and worked with their industrial design department and had them do the initial build, and then a local artist and a local business. So this particular Handy Station is a very simple design in that it's made out of plywood. I'll show you further on how that has developed. It has 2 wheels, hand sanitizer, which is sourced at our local distillery, Saxon's River Distillery. And then the music, so the concept of the music is that we have this 20 seconds, right? That we're supposed to sanitize our hands. So as it turns out, of course, we all know we need to wash our hands for 20 seconds, but we also actually need a full 20 seconds, according to the CDC, to hand sanitize. So that means coating the hands and then letting the sanitizer fully dry in 20 seconds before you move on to something else. So that 20 seconds, I don't know how many of you are a little bit tired of singing happy birthday, but I thought, what a great opportunity. We have amazing musicians here, and if they were to create different sound bites. Now that's expanded even further in that we can work with our performing artists also to orate a particular 20-second bit of narrative, and that can extend even to more abstract expressions of sound. So that musical component is quite key, and that it ties into someone locally. And then our artists can be the ones that, here's an example here in the initial kind of mock-up that I did of a sculptural element. So the first business was The Void, and they sell skateboards. So that seemed like a great opportunity to feature what they do without it being overtly advertising. So this isn't really an advertising opportunity, but it is a way of featuring their business and their style. So the features go on to have this button you see there on the left-hand skateboard, and above that you can see the representation of a speaker. And as you press that button, it plays that 20 seconds and you begin your hand sanitizing experience. We're now working on something that involves a motion sensor, so that when you put your hand underneath the bottle, it'll dispense the hand sanitizer, but it will also trigger the music. And that's kind of a cool piece that I'll talk about in a moment. So that's the basic thing. It's an adoption process, so the business would not pay for these, they would just adopt them. Everything is grant funded and sponsorship funded, because our brick and mortar businesses are struggling. So this is a way of helping them. This is a way of really clearly broadcasting that our downtown is open for business, and that our businesses are really taking public health seriously and to be very clear about what steps a patron needs to take in order to walk into that business and to in a safe way. Also important to me as a citizen of Brattleboro is that it also communicates to me that I'm not just being safe, but others walking to that business are being safe, and that's really clearly communicated. A couple of notes here, again, to kind of reiterate the collaboration between my organization, the Human Connection Project, and Brattleboro Housing Opportunities, which Chris Hart heads up. And that's really the programming arm of Brattleboro Housing Partnerships. And then working with the Brattleboro Downtown Alliance. Some of the seed funding initially came from the Arts Council of Windham County, and we're working on how they are partially funding the prototype process, as well as helping to augment some of the stipends that are being distributed amongst the artists and organizations that we'll be working with. So this is a pilot project, Brattleboro, of course. Love of Brattleboro, live in Brattleboro. This is where it happens. We're hoping that this becomes a model for other towns, and we have been communicating. We've had various municipalities reach out to us. So kind of really pulling together all the pieces so that it can be picked up and used elsewhere. Open Artful Streets is kind of this umbrella initiative that we're hoping to expand, and this is just the first project of this initiative. Handy stations here, really like what I described before, centering artists and how we reopen our downtown and social spaces effectively. This is just a demonstration of the prototyping process, which has been kind of really fun for me to dive into my design skills and because of not being able to work in large groups, I got to kind of zero in on a product. So we are exiting our prototype phase and going into our execution phase. We'll talk a little bit later. ADA accessibility is really important, and this is just demonstrating how this particular unit can be used by everyone. This is the sound system. So there's a compartment on it that involves, for those of you that know about Raspberry Pis, and this is programmed with a sound chip. And then we have a power bank. So these are plug and play. They get pulled in at night by the business, plugged in, the battery pack is charged, and then gets pulled back out. There's a small speaker on the system that's powered by the battery pack, and the motion sensor, as well as the sound trigger, is all triggered by this programmed small computer bit. So in mid-June, we put out the first prototype. We've learned a lot from that. We worked with the Void in downtown Brattleboro. Maybe a few of you have seen it or used it. Depending on the day that you used it, we've definitely gone through various iterations and learned a lot. This is showing still that we have a pump system for the sanitizer, and the sound system has been radically upgraded since it first hit the street. And these guys have been great to work with, really fun, really creative. The artist that we worked with was Maddie Pixley, and she is an artist that this business has been working with. So it seemed really natural to work with an artist that they already had a relationship with. In terms of the music, Peter Siegel came up with our first 20-second jingle. I should really play it for you, but we'll see if I can get that technology to work on this. And then here's our initial team. That's Peter Siegel on the left, Stephanie Bonin, myself, business owners, and Neil Patel. We have expanded our team since this photograph was taken. So this is just a little bit of our masthead of those folks that we're working with. So to develop further I was talking about the motion sensor. One of the ideas, and because I'm an educator, I've gotten a lot of calls from parents that have said, hey, are you working on something cool that my teenager can work on? Because they're, like bouncing off the walls at my home. And I just kept getting calls like that in emails. And I thought, you know, this motion sensor is actually some pretty simple coding technology. And I reached out to my friend Bob Parks. Maybe some of you know of him. He and for a long time, popular science, etc. And now the last couple of years has become a curriculum developer for PBS. And he said, yeah, I'd love to do this. So this week we're starting a family course on coding for industrial design. And we have 6 families that have signed up. It's a free course, and we provide all the materials, and they learn how to code by building a motion sensor hand sanitizing device. And that those are going to be employed in these stations downtown. So I'm really excited about that. And the other thing that I have been, let's see, we're doing mostly I'm trying to source all the materials locally. I would say at this point, probably close to 80%, 80 to 85% of all the materials and all of the funds are going right back into our local economy. Apart from some of the mechanisms that aren't produced in Brattleboro, everything else is Vermont or Brattleboro sourced. So that feels really good that when people invest in this, that it's really going right back into our economy. Our funding to date has come from Arts Council of Winham County. We got funding for 3 handy stations from the select board, and they're considering funding 3 more. Thomas Thompson Trust is funding 4 handy stations. And then we have a number of other grants that are, we're awaiting awards on those. So one thing that I quickly identified in my prototyping process is that all of these units, I wanted them to be cut out of 1 sheet of plywood, 1/2-inch ply, so that they're very economical. I also wanted to use a CNC cutting machine to do that, so that this could be, that we could scale up. I wanted to be ready for scaling this project. So I ended up, after a long search and lots of conversations, I teach at Yes Tomorrow Design Build School, and I reached out to some of the other instructors there and got connected with J.K. Adams in Dorset, Vermont. They make a lot of cutting boards and various kinds of wood items, and they've been around for a long time. And they were super psyched about this project and the public benefit of this project. And so now I've been working with their lead designer on just fine-tuning. I think we did that yesterday. We fine-tuned to find the CNC cutting of it. See, I think this should be my next slide. Here we go. So this is showing you how 1 5x5 sheet of plywood, all the pieces of this are cut out of it. The red is indicating routed sections so that it fits together, and then there's even pilot holes for all of the screws. So it puts together really, really easily. So that's an exciting development. And we're also working with RK Miles on the sourcing of that plywood. So this is showing you sort of the basic design of the latest version. And we've been reaching out to individual businesses to see if they want to sponsor a particular unit in front of either their business or maybe another business that they have a relationship to. And this is just showing where the art would be, either sculptural or 2-dimensional music. And the lower part of it will be the artist credits, like I said before, so we can really amplify who they are and their work. But we also are working with organizations like Out in the Open, the Sisu Collective, the Roots Social Justice Center. We're reaching out to all of those organizations and attempting to create partnerships to outreach to their membership and amplify their missions, since they don't have sort of a brick and mortar presence on our main street. Next steps, so more of those organizational partnerships and amplification of their work, particularly our social and racial justice groups in town at this moment is so critical. Outreach to our BIPOC artists, artist selection process. Funding, we're looking for funding for an additional 15 handy stations. And The last piece that I'm going to work on is the development of an interactive map and app so that when you go to a town, you can download that or go onto a website and be able to click on where all the hand stations are, and then have organizational profiles that pop up when you do that. And this is how you can. So thank you for the opportunity to present this. I'm going to stop my share and take questions.
Tom?
Hi, Erin. I don't know if you know it. You're probably way down the road, but the hatch space has a CNC machine right now.
Oh, that's great. If you could find out how to reach someone, I wanted to work with them and I have yet to.
Oh, that's easy. I'll send you an email.
No, I've sent emails and phone messages, but great, wonderful.
Well, let's talk.
You can do an email to both of us.
Tell me
I'd love that.
Tell me who. Later, we'll connect.
Yeah, later we'll connect. I would love that. That was my intention, and I was unsuccessful, and probably was because of COVID. That it was just
Possibly.
hard to.
I'll poke them with you.
I would love that. Thank you, Tom.
I have a question, President Carl. Erin, you may have mentioned this, and I'm sorry if I missed it, but what is the price of each station? What does it cost to sponsor a station?
Yeah, I actually didn't. So thanks for that question, Gina. Okay. It's $1,500 to sponsor a station. And that includes all of the, that includes everything. And I can actually even send a budget if anyone's interested in where all the money goes to, mostly to artists. I think it's close to 75% of that goes directly to humans, local humans.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Do we have other questions?
Hey, Rob.
Hi, Erin.
Hi, Rob.
Very cool. Very, very cool project. I'm wondering how winter might affect the stations.
Yeah, this is a good question. Well, they're pulled in at night. They are sealed. So it's plywood, but they're going to be spray sealed, all the components. And I designed it with water in mind. So that's a lot of the details of how water would flow on it. So the countertop is really a roof. So I'm thinking in terms of a house build. We will see though, that is going to be a little tricky. Particularly the top countertop, that's what I've worked a lot on, like how that countertop is impervious, especially because we're using an alcohol-based hand sanitizer. So that's some of the details of the prototype process of like trying to figure out all these little bits. But I think right now, based on how it's used at the Void, it's under their canopy, or it's sort of like they have an alcove where you walk into. So it actually is already protected by the rain, from the rain. And I'm also imagining that some of these businesses, even though they're wonderful to have them out, if it's inclement weather, and this actually already happens at the Void, they bring it inside. And so people can use it as they walk in, but whenever the weather is good, that's part of the adoption process, is that it is outside in front. Thanks.
And I'll just say I can imagine a disc golf themed hand sanitizing station. Not sure where you might want that, but Sam sells discs.
That's a great idea at Sam's. Yeah. And that could be good, because that could be also it'll be amplifying the course at Memorial Park. So I love that tie-in of our downtown amplifying what else is happening around town. So there's a great opportunity that way. All right, let's talk.
Other questions, comments for Erin? Not seeing any. Thank you very much for Erin for a great presentation. Things going on in town. And your contact information was there, and we appreciate that. I'm sure it'll be in the bulletin, folks, when that comes out. If there is no other business, just a reminder that next week's meeting will be Zoom only to accommodate our speaker, which should be great. And thank you. We'll adjourn with that. Have a great day.